Today we are going to dive deep underwater and look into the Deepin distribution, which I have not looked at for a number of years, but I figured since I have some new drives I'm testing on real hardware, we'd go ahead and give this guy a spin. And boy, I have some interesting thoughts. Welcome back to Switch to Linux, where we look at distribution reviews, why you should look at Linux, why you should look at free and open source software, privacy considerations, and some of the Windows shenanigans that pushed me over to Linux and even makes me thankful that I am well experienced on Linux these days. Well, today we're going to look at probably some of the best of the both worlds as we look at the Deepin Linux distribution. Now, I have looked at Deepin several times in the past, and I haven't looked at it in quite a while. It's been 3 or 4 years at least. And in that time, I think the Deepin desktop has, in the past, been a very good desktop as far as it's kind of neat. Now, there are some deep concerns. So let's go ahead and get rid of those deep concerns first. This is a Chinese distribution entirely built on Chinese software and controlled by a Chinese company. Now, there's a lot of discussions and debate. Is that good? Is that bad? Is it necessarily problematic just because it's Chinese? Does it have stick to the open source philosophies? Can we audit the code? Do we know what it's doing? These are all very good questions to ask. And of course, we don't really want to dive on in and sit down and be like, well, I just don't want to use it just because it's Chinese. We don't want to do that. We want to give it a little bit of a fair shake. But at the same time, we look at some of the things inside of the distribution and we have cause for concern. And then, of course, I have this other interesting thing that popped up. I'm not sure if it was this edition or just the previous recent editions that I have not yet looked at. Of course, it's the meme of the thing. China is known for having knockoff products. And as I'm playing around with Deepin, I'm like, this has literally become a Chinese knockoff of Windows 10 or 11, probably Windows 11. And I'm like, it's getting deeper. They got a privacy policy much like it. They're embedding AI tools like Copilot. They have even the styles, the themes, and outside of the icons itself, which are easy to change, a lot of these styles and themes around the desktop tend to gravitate towards a Windows-like approach. With a few subtle differences that I noticed, it's kind of interesting. But we do want to today have a look at the Deepin Linux distribution. So first, if you head on over to the page, and we are on, of course, the English version of the web page. You can select your language between Chinese and English. And they're here talking about what the distribution has to offer. This is Deepin 23. Let me go back to that. Deepin 23, 6.6 LTS kernel, 6.9 dual core. Let's see what this is. Yeah, integration of AI capabilities. So this is really the thing we want to look at. Now, the big question, what I'm not going to address is this doing any weird back-end shenanigans? I don't know. I'm not necessarily a security researcher. I will leave it to those folks to do a full audit of the system. And then we also have to question the difference between the Deepin desktop environment, which you can install on a number of different distributions, and the Deepin distribution itself, which at this time is based on Debian. I believe it used to be based on Ubuntu. So here we have their information out of the box, of the basic things. So out of the box, it's easy to install, can meet your work needs without additional system configuration. That is generally true. You can configure Deepin as you want, but it's not necessary. Optimal settings have already been applied. It's user-friendly. This is a very nice desktop environment. I still agree. It is a beautiful desktop environment. We have a little bit of ease to shift between like a Mac style approach and a Windows style approach. So you do have a lot of those elements already built into the system. And it is actually a very beautiful desktop environment, although I have like the previous iterations of it versus the one we have now. They do talk about privacy protection. After system installation, everything's up to you. Photos, music files are all your personal data. We do not collect any of them. You have full control over Deepin and do whatever with it you want. And we are going to look in detail at their privacy policy and see if there is truth specifically to that. There's perfect ecology. There's open source. This is where you can view the code of it. You can compile it yourself if you like. You can double check and see if there's any connections that there shouldn't be. So we do actually have those elements there. So that is really the approach. Now here they have EULA AI as realized the ability to access mainstream large models at home and abroad, and browser, email, and global search have taken up the AI capabilities. That's something that is coming into Deepin. How exciting. There's productivity, there's entertainment. So that's kind of what we have. Now what I do want to focus on here, because I go through it, I just kind of click through it without looking and reading it in full detail on the installation portion, which we are going to look at. But I do want to have a more detailed dive and discussion on the privacy policy and the end user license agreement, because this is one of the distributions that in the past my commentary was burn it with fire, because this is kind of a crazy privacy policy. So we have a user experience program license for Deepin OS. We have a user license agreement. We have a Deepin OS privacy policy. So we're going to open each of these up and have a look at what each of these guys happen to say. All right, so we're going to put them in the order of the links there. So the first one here is the end user license agreement for Deepin OS. So now here's the challenge is, like Windows, there are components you can sign into, and there are other components involved in the system as well. And so the privacy policies in their case do a decent job of illustrating what is part of what. And so we can kind of get a better chance to see what is what. So let's go ahead and have a look here. So based on the Linux kernel, software is integrated by open source softwares, selected, customized, and developed. Software's open source operating system complies to software license agreements of all open source softwares, components, and projects on which the software relies. So if we can take that on its face value, then you can indeed trust Deepin, so long as you're not signing into the service, at least in some element. So we have that. So we have the team is founded by Union Tech Software Technology, Union Tech Software. It's an affiliate of Wuhan Deepin Technology Co. And this is, of course, in China. And what they do mention in here is any disputes you agree to resolve according to China law. Basically, you have to do mediation first, and then China law will take over from there. How wonderful. Less replaced by new version. This EULA applies to any version of Deepin software community. So any one of the Deepin softwares is the current one on the web. This last one was updated in 2020, which I've probably looked at it since 2020. Maybe I've looked at it in 2019. I don't know. So we have our license authorization. They grant you the perpetual worldwide non-exclusive license to use it. Of course, you have to use it according to law. Is that China law? Is that the law of your jurisdiction? That's not quite as clear. Intellectual property rights. Of course, this deals mostly with their logos and their trademarks and things like that. And redistribution, you can distribute it as long as your copyright mark and notice are intact. So you can't, let's see, the software or its components for any commercial purpose, regardless of whether the software components have been modified. Okay. It does not allow you to redistribute the software or its components for commercial purposes. So if you are distributing it, you may not distribute it commercially. Although, which is interesting, because generally the software licenses, as long as you are maintaining the license, you can at least modify things. Let's see, our specifications. Use of the software is subject to the laws in the EULA. You are not entitled to perform, including but not limited to, the following activities: publish, deliver, transmit, store any content that contravenes the laws. To publish, deliver, transmit, store infringes on intellectual property. Basically, these 6 points are all dealing with legal elements. And if you fail to do that, they do say that you can pull out your license. Does that mean they're going to pull your software? It doesn't appear so. It doesn't appear they have a kill switch built in, but you never know, Disclaimer of warranty, of course. That's just, we're giving you this, and you can't sue us if something goes really tragically wrong. Limited liability, of course, same general principle. Third-party programs. This is where we have a few questions here. Deepin community may distribute third-party software programs with software that are not necessary to run the software provided as a convenience to you and are subject to their own license terms. So this is one of the things that in the past, their software store had the Chinese version of Google Analytics into it, so they could really capture a lot of data. It does still appear some of that may still be in effect, but I haven't looked in fine detail about what is still remaining in that, although the software updates are specifically mentioned in the privacy policy. Jurisdiction, of course, if any dispute arises between the Deepin community and the end user, they will resolve it through friendly negotiation. If negotiation fails, it shall be resolved in a court located in the jurisdiction of Union Tech Software. So wherever they happen to be. So if you have a serious complaint with Deepin, you will be taking a trip to China through their courts to deal with it. So I imagine that may or may not be fair to a person who is not from China. I don't know. So here is the user experience. This is, let me see. Okay, I think I moved the two around there. This is the privacy policy here. So this one's last updated March 2022. The Deepin policy describes personal information, what it's doing, things like that, of course. Of course, everybody's has this disclaimer these days, and I think everybody's putting it in here just to try and get around whatever local COPPA type laws there might be. Of course, in the United States, we have COPPA, which protects children online. So nearly every company, I was like, well, we are not specifically collecting anything on people under 14. That's the parent's responsibility, blah, 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 blah. Which in general, I would agree it should be the parent's responsibility to manage some of this kind of stuff. But it's like, don't make this something like this and then target it towards kids. Now, Deepin is not targeting this towards kids. Obviously, a Linux distribution is not targeted towards children. But the point is that everybody has this, whether they're trying to target kids or not. And I wonder if this has really been challenged enough to say, well, it doesn't really matter what's in your privacy policy because you're marketing it towards these guys, So it's available in multiple languages, but regardless of which language, the Chinese version shall prevail. So that is if there's a dispute, whatever is interpreted in the Chinese language is the one that will prevail. The privacy policy, okay, let's see. So here's where we have some information about, where are they at? You can reach out to them. And now we have how we collect, how we use cookies out of technology. Now, this is actually where they do a pretty good job on their privacy policy of illustrating what is going on, because they separate out the Deepin ID service, which is kind of like the Microsoft ID, right? So the Deepin ID service, you can register the Deepin ID through through the Deepin User Center at the account page on the screen. You'll see what that looks like, and use this account to log into the service or product provided by our partners. After logging in, we will also collect this information and store it in your Deepin ID, which we will treat as personal information. For specific rules regarding your account, please follow the Deepin ID service. Now, they're collecting your IP and your email address. That's actually right down here, registration of it. In order to comply with relevant regulatory requirements on accounts of various regions, when you register your Deepin ID, we'll collect your IP address to determine your regional location and provide you corresponding registration. If you are located outside the People's Republic of China, you will need to provide your personal email address to complete the Deepin registration. So if you're in China, you don't have to write your email address. If you're not in China, they need to know your email address. Isn't that exciting? They'll collect the IP address every time you log in to achieve secure fraud detection, account management. So make sure there's no suspicious logins or accounts. Now, the Deepin community, this more refers to the forums, the web help, and things like that. So this is a separate entity from the Deepin ID. So when you use this community to post, reply, or send private messages, we will collect the text, pictures, and videos, your behavioral information, likes, collections, comments, reporting information to achieve relevant regulatory requirements. When you edit your personal homepage, we'll collect your personal profile that you fill into the actual situation. Your refusal to provide the aforementioned does not affect normal use of the services. So you can actually not fill in the landing page. You can create your account, leave it as a blank profile, and other information blank. Okay, now the operating system itself, the only thing in their privacy policy regarding the operating system is the system update. And so that is what tells me that there is possibly a good reason we can trust an element of this distribution. When you upgrade the software, we will collect information about your operating system, device ID, CPU information we can clarify. Now, I am wondering, what I don't know is this just doing an update through the software center, or what happens if you pull up a terminal and just do an update? In theory, if you're just pulling up the terminal and update, anywhere that there is a repository of the Deepin software, in theory, you can change that and possibly skirt this. I'm wondering if it only collects that information through the update manager itself, but that I don't know. So that's a question we need to ask. So information of third parties, of course, if you log into your Deepin account, obviously all of the ways they impact that will be in there. Other uses, and then the rest of this kind of stuff goes into their basic uses. So we're not going to read this verbatim. I'm going to summarize it. I have read this entire privacy policy. Yes, I understand the entire privacy policy. So under other uses, this is where it talks about the information that they collect will be used within the limits of the law to do analytics data research. So if you are using Deepin, I would not use any of their services outside the desktop itself. The cookies and stuff, this is if you go on the website, they do say that they respect the do not track. There's some information about SDKs, and they collect information about that, and then you can see where the SDK information is. Of course, inside of the information here, they do their data sharing pretty much like any American company does, permitted by law, regulations, normative documents. But they also do talk about data analytics. Of course, they're using data analytics as a means of non-personal or private data. We're going to put a pin right there and go to the very bottom of the page because they have definitions. Personal information to them means information recorded electronically or otherwise identified or identifiable natural persons, including but not limited to the natural person's name, birth date, ID card number, personal biometric information, address, and telephone, while the information that has been anonymized is not included. Sensitive personal information is information that, if leaked or used illegally, could lead to the infringement of a natural person's human dignity or cause personal or property damages to a natural person, including, without limitation, biometric identification, religious belief, specific identity, healthcare, financial accounts, whereabouts, as well as personal information of minors under the age of 14. So that's their basic definitions we're going with. So just to understand the difference between those two words. So in order to fulfill the agreement for other purposes, we may provide some of your personal information to a third party. In personal information process, such a processor has the right to process information received only when such information is purpose of basically, yes, we can and send it over to third parties. They can do with it what third parties tend to do. And so the only thing I found was really interesting down here is under their information here, let's see. Here's your rights. You have the right to send us written requests via contact ways, releases, privacy parties require contact of your personal information, kind of like a GDPR type thing. You can tell us what we're doing. But I really liked this one in part 0.6. In the case that we decide to respond to your deletion or cancellation request, like, please delete or cancel my stuff. In the case we decide to respond to it, we will not continue to process your personal information anymore, and also inform third parties, including affiliated companies, that share your personal information with us. With the best efforts, such requests third parties to delete your personal information in a prompt manner, unless otherwise specified by laws. Such third parties have gained your independent authorization. So you have to reach out to all of their third parties. But I do love that phrase that says, if we decide to respond to your deletion or cancellation request. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, how wonderful. All right. So everything else down here is what you'd expect in a standard privacy policy, but the point is that they are collecting information. The operating system itself does not appear to be collecting a lot more information than basic system information, but I don't know if that's just through, is that being collected through the software center as you do an update in the GUI, or is that something collected on somehow on their server end? In other words, booting up a terminal and doing a sudo apt update, sudo apt upgrade might be the safer option, is what the way I'm reading that, unless somebody has better information. So that is an interesting introduction. Let's go ahead and actually have a look at the installation, and then we'll do just a really brief review of Deepin, and then we'll come back and wrap up. Here when we boot on, we can see there's a number of different options. We have a couple different kernels we can choose from. We can try it, or we can just install it. So you see that you can choose which one of the kernels you want between the 6.6 and the 6.9 as of right now. Beautiful introduction logo. Now we land on the desktop, and we have to choose our language. Of course, it defaults to Chinese. We're going to easily select the US English from the top, and then manually select our time zone. Just nice, it's not checking our location. Apparently, most other distributions check your location from your IP address and tell you what it is. So now we land on the Deepin desktop, and we have some options here. So there's a little video we can watch. We'll just skip through so you can choose whether you want your dock to be aligned left or aligned to the center. So you have a number of different options there. I like the aligned left. So now you have the effects mode. So the normal does not have any extra effects. There's transparencies and things in the effects mode, which will probably take more graphics, but at the same time, it does look more beautiful. You can choose an icon theme. So see what we like here. We'll go ahead and stick with the bloom icon theme. And we'll run the installer here. And now we have to agree to the end user license agreement and the privacy policy, which we've already looked at in detail on this video. So we have to agree to the terms of the policy, hit next, and now we can do a full disk, a custom, or an advanced if we wanted to allocate things, configure our points, choose which drive. And then you can see what you can do LVM, you can use disk encryption. I'm going to skip those two there. We have create an initial backup. I'm not going to do that. My guess is that's probably going to be like a system restore point for something you find in Windows. But now we're just going to go ahead and let this go and do its thing. So it is successfully installed. We're going to go ahead and reboot the system, and then on the reboot, we're going to configure our user account and set up the desktop again. So here I'm going to choose which one I'm booting into. So we have a nice Aurora Grub login screen there. Our beautiful logo's back. And now we start in by creating our user account. We can adjust that image there. I'm not going to mess with that. But here we just give it a username, and that's going to configure a computer name with it. Oops, let's spell Deepin correct. And then we're going to go ahead and set a password here and let it reconfigure the computer. This will take just a few minutes. It says it's at 100%, and it looks like it's going to reboot itself. So now we have to log in with our password. And then once again, we have our welcome screen where we are going to set up our configuration options. We're going to switch the align left, and we're going to do effects mode. Now, all these things you can change later on. It'll tell you there in the control center. So we'll look at what the different options are here. I kind of like that darker theme, so I think we'll go with the flow on this one. So now let's have a look at the operating system as a whole. So the first thing I'm going to address is, yes, this does appear like it's trying to be a Windows clone. Everything from the browser has a slight look of the new logo for Edge to just the basic styles of the icons and how the windows look. Now, the major difference here is we have rounded corners here, and Windows is still is still square, like completely straight. But you actually can change that. That is one of the settings inside of the system. And you can actually match the colors to Windows as well. But you can see the general look of the icons and things, except for the mouse cursor, does have a stylistic view to Windows. We have the Show Desktop down here, exactly like Windows does. Of course, Cinnamon does the same thing. It is a popular thing. Of course, I think those are the only two desktops I know of that have the Show Desktop as this bar available now. But we also have the AI assistant here built in. So we have our AI assistant that we can look at. And if you go into your system settings, we have a really big advertisement for your Deepin ID so that you can sync your personal data across various devices. So, like I said, it does have the feel of trying to be a Windows clone in that respect. Even looking at how the menu works, the menu is just this list of every application. Now, there's a couple of different options that we have as far as how these are organized. And this is a little different, in which case this is just your frequently used. I didn't see a way that I could add or remove something to this. I didn't really see a favorites option anywhere. And so that really is one of the distinctions, but just this flat regular list. Now, of course, here's your sorting by category. So, of course, Linux applications do have categories. And we have the option to do just sort by name itself, which is exactly what Windows does. So it does carry that. Now, of course, this does have like the Mac type feel as well, which is certainly distinct and a cool feature of Deepin that I've always enjoyed. So that is certainly the thing I'm going to point out. Moving on to the other factors, let's look at the software installer. Now, the software installer, if you pull it up, you'll notice that we have this blending of different applications. We have these pure Chinese ones, and then we have just a number of other applications. Let me expand this guy up a little bit. And here's WPS Office, but you'll notice we got you'll notice that we have the Chinese versions there. It does look like that is installed, I guess. Let's have a brief look. Let me go by sort by name again. Let me verify this is WPS is installed. It doesn't appear to be. Oh, LibreOffice is installed. It looked like it had the check mark there, so it almost looked like WPS Office for Linux was installed, but I'm not seeing it installed. So I'm not sure why that check mark is there if the application isn't there. That's curious to me. Here's your updates. So here we have this wonderful application here needs an update. I'm not sure what it is, but And then here is the AI assistant has an update as well. So one of the things that made me think about this is last time I looked at Deepin, I could actually select between two stores, one which was mostly US based and one which was the Chinese or the standard one. I'm not seeing that option. I did check. Here's your settings. So this is just basic things. Auto download apps with newer versions. So if an application just needs updated, it'll just automatically update it if the system is idle. And after downloading application, you can choose where things go. So that's all the settings I see. If somebody does know about a way that we can say, hey, let's get the Chinese specific apps out of here, let me know that. But that used to be a clear setting inside of Deepin, and I'm not seeing it here anymore, which means that in the past, you could make Deepin feel more like, just a regional distribution there, whereas now I can't seem to get away from the Chinese apps in any way. And so that raises some extra thoughts and concerns. Now, as far as changing things like our basic system settings, let's go ahead and have a look at those. So this is where we can adjust our, we do have a display brightness. This is the only distribution I know of where I can fade my HDMI screen right here. Like a friend of mine has installed this on his Linux Mint machine and uses it regularly because he just wants to adjust the screen temperature down. That's cool. But this is the only one I know of off the top of my head that has brightness of the LCD built in. Now, mind you, this is not the brightness of a laptop screen, which is standard on laptops. This is a desktop computer. I'm able to dim the screen. That's kind of cool. We have night shift built in. So you have that. We have change color temperatures, so I can go more cool. I can go more warm. So if I like that type of stuff, I can do that. And we have display scaling. Now, one thing I am going to note here on the resolution is that I'm doing this through the capture card, which tends to like defaulting by a 720p instead of a 1080p. So when I first booted into the system, it was reporting that the resolution was 1080p, but it wasn't. So I had to change the resolution to something else and then change it back to where we are now to actually get it to show at this resolution. So that's one thing I will mention as well. There's refresh rates and rotations, of course. All that's fairly standard stuff. Here's your default applications. So I can choose between default applications of all the different things that are in here. And then this is where we change our themes. And this is where we change our dock. So where do you want your dock at? You can do top, you can do bottom. You can keep it shown or not. We can make it larger. We can make it smaller. So you have a number of different options inside of your dock, which is nice. So it looks like the dock size will also adjust the icon size as well. And then here is what is in your plugin area down here. So if I don't want the AI at all, I can just get rid of it like that. It's still installed. It's just I don't have it accessible there. But we're going to keep that there. I'm going to look at it. So here you can do, here's the screen brightness. So if you want to be able to adjust that screen brightness again, you can put that right on there. So for people looking at that, that's kind of cool. Although there's ways to do that without this. Here's the record app. Let's see what that looks like. Okay. Okay, I'm not sure. Okay, let's just push escape. I'm not sure what's going on with that. All right, and then visual effects. Okay, so we have auto, light, and dark, adjust for eye comfort, things like that. So that's kind of cool that you can choose exactly what is on your taskbar. That's kind of cool. This is where I was mentioning if you don't like the rounded corners, you can go ahead and make them as straight as you want. Again, I love this feature. I wish more desktops had options like this. Here's the opacity of your bar down there at the bottom, so you can do that. Now, one thing that's not on personalization is changing the wallpaper. It took me a while to figure that out. Wasn't display settings? Yeah, it was personalization. So this is where you could change your wallpapers at. So there's a number of different really beautiful pictures in here, by the way. So if you do like your nice pictures, you can do that. That's our default there. Oh, that's beautiful. So that's how we change that. Let me just find one and stick with it. You know what? Since we're using Deepin, let's go with one of these ones that has Deepin on it. There we go. We'll go with that. Let's go with that one. All right, I like that one a little better. Hey, all right, I didn't actually save it. All right, let me go back to that personalization, find that Deepin wallpaper again. The Deepin wallpaper. Okay, so this is your lock screen, your desktop, or both, kind of like a phone. So there we are. So there we are. Now we have our wallpaper back. Let's pull our settings back up. Here's your network things. We do have the ability to add VPNs. And I did check this because I had mentioned a distribution the other day. I forget which was, but it's had WireGuard built in, which was actually a nice feature. This doesn't. I was just double checking that. So just have your basic VPN options there. We have notification systems, so we can do what is able to play notifications. So if you don't want something to do a notification, you can take that out. Sound, power. And then here you can do power savings. You can decrease the brightness on power savings. We have a balance to high performance and a power saver mode. So those are good. And then here we can check for updates over here. So it is done checking updates as of a little bit ago. And here's your basic system information. So it is running on X. This is not running Wayland. That is running X. And here is how your boot menu looks with the Aurora screen. So you can turn the themes on, or you can turn them off, things like that. I'm just going to cancel that. To make some of these changes, here's the boot animation, so you can do big or you can do small size. You need to go in and make those changes. So that is all of the things inside of the system app. As far as what it has installed by default, we have the basic app store. We have an archive manager, just basic system tools effectively. There's really nothing else here other than your basic tools and system things. Let's see what the downloader is. Let's double check what that is. Okay, so it looks like that's probably just a standard downloader. Okay, so we're going to just exit, so you can keep that active in the background. So that's actually a neat feature to have built in. We have a disk utility, document scanner, document viewer. Not familiar with that one either. Is that a game? Oh, it's a game. And then LibreOffice is built in. We have a mail application built in, package installer. So really no software other than the basics you would need. We have email, we have an Office suite, we have a web browser, and then the App Store that you can install other things. So it doesn't do a tremendous amount of overkill on the apps it installs. All right, now the last thing, let's have a brief look at their AI assistant. So you have to configure this. Now there's a couple of different options. We have this EULA, we have Deepin Assistant, we have a personal assistant. So some of these will base themselves on different accounts. So over here, let's just agree to this stuff. I don't even know what I'm agreeing to, but we're just going to do it for the purpose of review. So this is where you need to sign into an AI model. So we have GPT 3.5, GPT 4, we have some Chinese ones, and then there's a custom. So I guess if you have your own hosted language model somewhere, you can, in theory, use that. And then if you have an API key, you can do that. So you really do have to set up one of the individual systems. Now, there's a Deepin Assistant there. Let's see what options that gives us. Okay, so that's all the same options. So no matter which one of these, if you wanted to take advantage of any of these AIs, you'd have to go ahead and configure it. But let's see, testing. Let's see. Tell me about something. So it requires an account before you can use it. So you cannot use any of this kind of stuff until you actually create the account. So we do have an AI assistant built in. I'm wondering if you have a Deepin ID, if it automatically does. I don't know. I doubt it. But so there is our brief look at Deepin. Let me have a brief look at our terminal here. Let's do. Oh, I accidentally hit the email thing. Sudo apt update. Let's double check this. Verification successful. So see, it's doing. It's just checking to see what's up there. So you can see that it's actually going for deepin.com. It's going to uniontech.com. So that makes me wonder, is it collecting the IP address, doing the computer stuff here or elsewhere? Now you'll notice that this says 198 packages could be upgraded, but when I went into the App Store and to the settings and looked at the upgrading things, this actually just said there's 2 items, right? Just 2, these 2 items here. And inside of the settings panel, there was a updates here, and it says your system is up to date. So I am seeing that the system is up to date on the 2 packages in the App Store, which presumably is just applications and not the core system. But this tells me that 198 packages can be updated. So let's just have a look at what those are. If I could spell upgradable. There we are. Okay, so this is just looks just some basic Linux packages. So there seems to be a little bit of discrepancy between what's updated and what's not updated and things like that. So that is a curious principle of the system as well. Overall, though, it is a beautiful desktop. I really like the desktop environment, even though it does bring us close to Windows 10. Ugh. which I don't think stylistically Windows 10 is horrible, other than this menu is atrocious. Other than that, I don't find Windows 10 to be horribly ugly. I just find the things it does insane. This probably brings a little of the insanity out. Of course, we still have this AI installed by default. It'd be nice if I could just completely remove that, because I would never use it. And then there are questions about, are there any data being collected secretly behind the scenes, being a Chinese distribution? Although if it is open source, then we probably know the answers to those. May or may not be actually happening. But with that, we'll go ahead and wrap the video up at this point. There's our look at the Deepin distribution. So this is definitely not one I'm going to use for some of the things that we have pointed out as we looked at the distribution itself. But at the same time, it is beautiful. It is compelling. The desktop environment itself, if we can trust that, that might be one to play with. But again, I am still seeing this as a knockoff Windows clone. Let me know if you see the same thing in the comments down below. If you like this type of content, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. Leave us a like and a comment down below, and pass this video along to anyone that you think might enjoy watching it.